I'm pleased that you've joined us for the presentation, The Role of Leadership in a Lean Environment. Just a quick housekeeping, if you have your cell phones, can you please either turn them off, put them on quiet or vibrate. We will have a question and answer session after the presentation, so please hold your questions until the end. There will be plenty of time for that. Our speaker for this morning's session is Ronald Draper, Vice President of Integrated Supply Chain for EasyGo Textron. As such, he is responsible for all activities associated with ISC, which includes manufacturing, lean initiatives, parts and accessory distribution, EH&S, production control, materials and logistics, procurement, manufacturing engineering, and custom vehicle applications. Prior to being named VP of ISC, Draper held positions as Director of Strategic Sourcing, responsible for EasyGo supply management processes. This included leading and directing all supply chain initiatives to ensure quality, delivery, and cost of all purchased components, materials, and services to meet customer expectations. Ron has held various other management positions at Textron, among them Director of Procurement for the B-22 program at Bell Helicopter in 2005, and Director of Supply Chain Production Development at Cessna Aircraft in 2003. Before joining Textron in 1999, Draper was a captain in the U.S. Army, serving in the aviation branch as a helicopter pilot and company commander. He earned a master's of an MBA from Wichita State University and a Bachelor of Science in Engineering Management from the United States Military Academy. Please welcome Ron Draper.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm pleased to be able to present to you this morning. I know that I think I'm the last guy before lunch. This could be a good or a bad thing. I'll try to keep it interesting. This morning I'm going to tell you about, I'll tell you a story of our journey, of our transformation, what lean is to our company. Hopefully I'll keep that interesting. I've got several short videos that they tend to go over well, so maybe that'll keep the group even more interested. And as I've told you, my responsibility for operations at EasyGo, and I'm excited to be here. So, before we get started about our lean journey, I thought I could talk a little bit about our company, just to give you a background. I apologize for the room. I feel like the columns here a little awkward. I'll try to walk around to. They can't pick me up. Okay. Yes. Okay. Can you not hear me in the back? Do I need to speak up more? I'm getting a thumbs up. All right. This is the Textron family. EasyGo's a wholly owned business within the Textron portfolio. If you're not familiar, you can see the different businesses within Textron Corporation. You can see a little bit at the bottom the size of the corporation. As he mentioned, I've worked at several of the businesses within Textron, and I'm currently at EasyGo, which is a part of the industrial segment of Textron. EasyGo business segments, we're typically known as the golf cart company, but we do a lot more than golf cars. Clearly, golf is kind of our core business, but from that, we produce a lot of other types of vehicles, from off-road vehicles to personal use vehicles to industrial and commercial type vehicles. You may have some of these in your factories, but you don't even recognize it. We're pulling parts around and things like that. And of course, we have a parts and accessories business as part of that as well. Here's our brand promise. Really, we pride ourselves on about customer service, relationships in our business, and focus on our customers. Our tagline, if you see it in the advertisements, is excellence in motion. I'll kind of tell you up front the takeaways from our lean journey, which is right on the slide, and we'll circle back to it at the end. This is the main points. This is the takeaways as we see it from our lean transformation journey. It's about leadership. It's about a vision. It's an end-to-end focus. It drives a culture change, and you have to stay humble as you go throughout it. And I'll put more explanation on that as we go forward. 2009 was quite a year for us. Not only in December were we formally notified by Industry Week that we had been selected as one of their top 10 plants, which was quite an accomplishment from our workforce's perspective. They were very excited about that. The year prior, we'd only been a finalist. 2008, one of the top 20 finalists. In 2009, we were actually awarded a top 10 plant recognition. Also earlier in the year, as a company, we had received a Shingo Prize. I'm sure everybody in this room, I don't have to explain what the Shingo Prize is, and we were notified in April, in last May, we attended a Shingo conference where we accepted the enterprise-wide, so it wasn't just operations, it was enterprise-wide Shingo Prize. 2009 really marked the year of external recognition for our company, and it was a bright spot in an otherwise very difficult economy to receive that external recognition in 2009. Our workforce kind of saw it as a culmination of vision we set out many years ago to transform the company from a poor-performing factory operation into a very competitive lean environment. And so to receive that recognition kind of told us that we had come a long way. We're proud of that. So let me start with actually the first video here. This is a video we put together. It's less than 2 minutes. We put it together for the Shingo conference last year. It gives you a feel for the company. You see some of the employees in it. You see some of the improvements and stats in the video. And I hope you will enjoy that. No, we got no sound. The audio visual back up. Just test it beforehand. Live here. Let's switch back to No, it's embedded into the speaker system. We tested it 2 minutes ago. It's fine.
Hey, how you doing today? I'm in the white hot room.
Well, press on. So, trust me, it was a good video. We even rehearsed it. That's good. Okay, so we'll talk about our lean journey.
Okay, someone's coming.
And I'll really talk about it in 3 segments. 2003 through 2005, we kind of call our vision setting period. Broadly categorize it. 05 through 08 is really where we transformed our operations. And I'll talk about how we did that and how leadership played a major role in that. And then I'll talk about today, what we're calling the current period, where we believe we've got a culture of continuous improvement and we're driving those improvements in all areas throughout. Now, at this point, I'm going to play that video, but I don't know if you understand. All right, well, we're not going to do it. The video I was going to show showed a number of employees that had been there a long period of time, and it was called a Before Lean video. And it had them, in their own words, talking about our operation, our factory, prior to this lean transformation journey. So it was mostly folks that had been there 10, 20, 30, even some, one gentleman's 40-year employee, talking about really, and you visually got to see pictures of the facility prior to lean transformation. And we really had a burning platform to transform the company, as the video will describe. It was not a good performing factory. Okay, we had parts problems, we had quality problems, we had it was dirty, it was a dark place, it was not a good place to come to work. We had employee problems, morale problems, etc. Not only that, in the 2003 timeframe, we had challenges to the company's competitive model. We lost money in that year. We were losing market share. We were losing customer satisfaction. So clearly, we had a burning platform that we had to do something different. And we had new leadership come in at the time, the president and the senior management staff, and they now had a vision to transform the operation. One of the goals we set along the way was one day we'd like to try to apply for Shingle Prize for an industry top 10 plan. And back in the 03-04 timeframe, that seemed like a pipe dream that we could never achieve. Internally to our corporation, we had a continuous improvement process to assess our own facilities based on Shingle criteria. And we put that in place. This was called the Golden 08. That was an internal target. We wanted to be a Shingle level goal based on our own assessments in 2008. And that was a 5-year goal for us. And I said one day to hit the Shingle prize. 2005 through 2008, we call it the transformation period. This is where we rigorously started transforming the operation of the facility. It really started top down for us. We brought in consultants. We had a Six Sigma program and a Lean program that was just getting off the ground. We brought in consultants from some of the big consulting groups and paid a lot of money to help them get us started. Most of the projects started on whole value streams, whole assembly lines. It was kind of top-down driven, and the workforce wasn't bought in yet, and we didn't have the knowledge internally in our middle management and our workforce to drive ourselves, and so we started top-down. But from the beginning, we focused heavily on leadership and our workforce. And I'll talk more about that later on in the presentation. Also, from the beginning, we focused on end-to-end. So it wasn't just manufacturing. We tackled the supply chain, logistics, material flow, ME, design engineering, kind of went end-to-end on the whole thing from the beginning. And that was our transformation period. Today, really from 2008 and beyond, we achieved a culture that drives year-over-year improvements in safety, quality, delivery, and cost. So I'll show some metrics later to show evidence of that. But every year now, the metrics get harder and harder to achieve, but our workforce continues to amaze us with what they accomplish now that the culture is much different. And we're seeing much better scores in customer satisfaction, and we believe driven a competitive advantage against our competition in certain aspects of our business. So we're a much better business because of this lean journey. And this was when you would see video number 3 that talks about some of those employees and the difference of what it's like to work there today versus what it was 5 and 6 years ago. They say things like, before it was autocratic, you just told us what to do. It was less safe. It was not enjoyable. They talk about today how they feel empowered to make change. They feel about how hourly operators on the assembly line are driving continuous improvement projects in their own workstations. How we achieve higher levels of performance in all areas across the board. That would be a video to talk about that in their words instead of just mine. So if you ask my president or you ask anybody in our leadership team, what enabled this transformation operationally in our company? What was the biggest thing? And they would say it was a change in our culture. Did we apply all the lean tools? Yes, we did. But to us, lean manufacturing is less about the application of lean tools. Do I need a Kanban system here? Or do I need to improve one-piece flow here? It isn't figuring that out, right? It's changing the culture. And changing the culture was driven by leadership. So, this is a formula we just made up. It's not in a textbook you'll see somewhere. It's our philosophy on lean manufacturing. Continuous improvement, lean manufacturing, our operational excellence, I should better say, is 75% about leadership. It's 20% basic management, the stuff you ought to be doing anyway. And it's 5% about applying the right lean tool in the right area. That's how we teach our leadership, our first line supervisors and back, what lean manufacturing is about. getting the right leaders at the point of the spear where value creation occurs every day. They're the ones changing the culture. They're the ones driving the quality, the delivery, the cost improvement, the continuous improvement. So investing in that leadership. And quite frankly, get rid of the poor leaders as well. That's what lean manufacturing is to us. So leadership development, as I said from the very beginning, was critical to our transformation. In our operations today, the most important position is not my position. It's those team leaders. It's the first line supervisor. For us, that's an hourly person who leads a team of 4 to 10 people in a fabrication cell or in an assembly line or in a warehouse or in a logistics operation. That team leader position is the most important position. So investing in their development was critical to our success. And weeding out the poor ones and keeping the good ones, investing in their development over time is what paid off to us. Also, extensive benchmarking. I talked about having a vision. Well, it's great to have a vision statement, and we have one, and most companies have one. That doesn't burn in anybody's brain how to go make this thing happen, how to transform it. And you can't get in a classroom and instill a vision into somebody. At least we didn't believe that. So extensive benchmarking was the way we got those frontline leaders, our middle managers, our Six Sigma, our lean experts, get the vision of what it could be like. We had to get outside of our company, outside of our industry, and go to what you're doing here. Go visit the top 10 plants. Go visit top manufacturers and see what they're doing. And we did that aggressively. In the early days, we would just call companies on the phone. Hey, we saw you in Industry Week magazine. You're listed on the top 10 plant. Can we come see you? Most would let us in, some didn't. And we would leverage relationships to try to get into plants. Mike was telling me a story last night how we tried to leverage him to get into a Ford plant a few years ago. And so we put in anybody and everybody that would let us in the door. And it wasn't industrial tourism. It was finding something we could take back and put into our plant. But most of what we were doing was creating in the minds of our leadership team the vision of what it could be like. And that's what we're trying to do. So we benchmarked from Toyota manufacturing to Harley Davidson to Batesville was talking earlier this morning, and other companies that are a long list we visited them and built that vision in our workforce. We had to change the communication and trust with our workforce, and that was a lot of different mechanisms for improving the communication with our workforce. From all employee meetings to skip level meetings to straight truth with our workforce. And quite frankly, in the beginning, it was rough. Lean manufacturing was used as a threat to jobs and those types of things. But over time, the trust was built up that we were telling them the truth. They weren't going to get rid of jobs. And they began to see the improvements. So I'll talk about a tipping point on that towards the end of the presentation when we knew the workforce had started to really buy in to this transformation. And of course, from the outset, operator involvement, many of you do that extensively. For us, that was critical for our transformation. Having them involved in this through the entire transformation and still today. So if I had to summarize on one slide the things that changed the culture, this would be it. This would be it. And it's primarily about leadership. And it's changed our culture immensely. There are two aspects of changing that culture around performance management that I want to talk about. Driving engagement and eliminating poor performers. Driving that cultural change, that engagement. Everybody wants a workforce that's engaged, that's motivated, that wants to drive continuous improvement, that feels skin in the game to the business. Okay? Well, there's two sides of that. There's the positive aspects, right? Operator involvement and communication and trust and utilizing their knowledge and skills about who actually accomplishes the work to drive an improvement. And we did a lot of that. Through operator involvement, empowerment. Pay performance was a big source of improvement for us in terms of that employee engagement. I'll talk more about that on the next slide. But it introduced variable compensation to our hourly workforce as we achieve those goals. But at the same time, we had to move on to core performers. Now, in full disclosure, we were not a unionized plant, so introducing performance management with our workforce was easier for us. But we instituted all the way down to hourly level, annual performance reviews, bottom 10%, put on performance improvement plans, and were moved down. Through natural attrition and elimination of poor performers, you can see that's just some of our hourly headcount there, 40% reduction. We built more cars and yet reduced headcount 40% over that time period. And we did that we did not have layoffs when we did that. That was just poor performers and natural attrition. We did not replace that headcount. And what was a workforce 5 and 6 years ago that had a lot of troublemakers in it? I had a plant manager who used to go around, we're in Augusta, Georgia, so sometimes we have problems with folks not wearing their pants all the way up to cover their rear ends. And so, he would go around with a piece of rope and hand out belts at times back 5 and 6 years ago. Today it's a different facility. We don't have troublemakers. We have employees in uniforms. We constantly get compliments on the engagement of our workforce. Our president today originally came out of marketing and sales. And he says 5 and 6 years ago, he would lay down in front of the door to prevent customers from coming in the plant because he didn't want them to see where the product is produced. And today, if we could get a customer to take a plant tour, we get the same every time. So all we try to do, the sales folks will try to get them to the plant. Because our employees will greet them with a smile, they'll talk to them, and they'll tell the customer what I may be putting tires on the assembly line, but they'll talk about what he or she's doing to get more efficient of putting tires on the assembly line. And that impresses the customer. So, performance management was the other end of improving that workforce and eliminating poor performance. We'll quickly talk about pay performance. Was a key part of driving that engagement in our workforce. What we did, we actually benchmarked Nucor. And hearing John speak this morning about Nucor was especially interesting to me because we benchmarked Nucor over the years, and their human resource practices are phenomenal. I'm not comparing ours to Nucor's human resource practices, but we did benchmark what they do. What I found amazing with Nucor is after you go through a rigorous interview process, you start at a wage or salary, and in 90 days you get your pay cut. Because you go from a trial employee to accepted by the team, and then you go mostly on bonus or incentive. And so your guaranteed take home goes way down. And so they drive for productivity because every person's got skin in the game in terms of how the company performs. And to us, that was amazing how they did that. And we didn't go that far, but we introduced a variable compensation for hourly workforce. So we have not given a base pay wage increase in our plant in 6 years. We only increased wages in the last 4 years, by introducing variable compensation. We call it pay for performance. But what you see here is the simple metric we started with in 2007. Company's financial health, how are they doing on first-time quality, delivery, labor hours per vehicle? We'll talk more about that in a second. How are they doing around safety goals? And what is their attendance? Is your buddy coming to work? Because if your buddy's not coming to work, it's going to hurt both of your pay. And so that variable incentive compensation, it started small. It was $400 a quarter. Today we're at $900 a quarter, so it's roughly about 10% of one of our operation floor person, hourly associates' pay comes from variable compensation. And we would like to keep taking that up a little bit. A higher percentage being how they achieve the goals. And every year these goals get harder. They don't get easier. All right. So we'll talk a little bit about some of our metrics and some of our lean achievements. plenty of time. So. Okay, one of the things we had to do when we did this transformation was simplify our metrics. One, how most companies account for labor efficiency is so complex sometimes accountants can't explain it. Try to explain it to somebody on the shop floor that says, we want you to do better last year than this year. You're talking about earned hours and absorption and contribution margin and labor efficiency, and they're like, hey, I can't figure that one out. We wanted to simplify it. So we had to change some of our accounting practices. Now, our accountants still keep the books, but what we tell, keep the books the same. But what we measure on the factory floor, we just went to labor hours per vehicle. Okay? We produce about 100,000 vehicles every year, and we want to know, are we making more vehicles with less labor hours every year? That's this trend right here. So back in 2005, every vehicle we produced took about 10.5 hours of labor put into it to produce that vehicle. In 2009, it was 6.4. Okay? You see our goal for 2010 is 6. So every year that we're having to produce more vehicles with less labor. That's a metric that everybody down the shop floor can understand and get their arms around. That was understanding and simplifying those metrics, and every day going through them was a key part of our transformation. And we can measure now, are those continuous improvement projects actually resulting in bottom line savings? Are we getting more efficient with our labor? Material flow. Material flow, we call material the lifeblood of our factory. I mean, in reality, getting material flow right is one of the hardest things to do in any operation. Getting those inventory levels down, but yet not running out of parts, the right part, the right place, the right quality, all that's difficult to do. And I said we had an end-to-end focus, and so we focused on that. And you can see 05 through 09, 30% improvement in our inventory turns is just one measure. I can also tell you back in 05, and you would have seen it in the video, one of our manufacturing supervisors said, well, we ran out of parts, we would go ahead and build the vehicles anyway, park them outside. When the parts came in, then we rework the vehicles and then ship them out. And at times, there were 20% of the product that would happen to us. And that was a constant thing that occurred in terms of parts shortages. Yet we had double to 2.5 times the inventory back then that we have today. Okay? So it's a 30% improvement. That doesn't really tell the whole story. In 2009, sales were down, right? And yet inventory turns were flat. So we reduced inventory 45% in 2009, just to hold turns flat. As we expect the economy to recover this year, we hold on to those gains. We'll really drive our turns up to 40 turns per year in terms of our inventory practices. And our shortages, we now really only measure shortages with one measure. We call it critical line disruption. When the operator turns around and grabs the part and it's not there, that's a critical line disruption. And it becomes a major critical line disruption. If that line has to wait 30 minutes for a part, we typically send them home for the day. We measure that. If we have a part disruption once a month, we want to know root cause and what we're doing about it. Okay? Murphy's still out there, we still have them, but it's a rarity as opposed to building. We don't build vehicles anymore without parts. We ship them out in the backyard. If we run out of parts, we stop the line, we go home, and the sourcing material guys have some explaining to do until we get the parts. Supply base. So if you see, back in 2005, we had nearly 600 production suppliers. And we could not manage it. We couldn't even come close to managing it. We had only 5 quality engineers in our supplier quality department. The 600 suppliers, do the math. How do they get to visit those suppliers to check on their process and their quality? If they hit one a day, they don't get to all of them in a year. And there were suppliers we hadn't been to in years, let alone the transactions and the purchasing organization. So we had to lean out our supply chain. We set a goal to get it below 200. And we hired a lean expert who came in man had been doing this for 30 or 40 years, and he said we need to be at 100 or less. Well, we're not there yet. We're still trying to get to 100. But you can see it's about a 60% reduction in our supply base. Yes, we got cost savings in that, but the biggest thing was the hidden factor, the transaction cost. Our business is simpler now. We can manage 200 suppliers. Yes, I want less, and we have goals to reduce it even further. But we can manage 200 suppliers. We couldn't manage 600 production suppliers. And now we can partner. We have fewer suppliers with more of our business. We can partner with them along our lean journey. First time quality. This measures the quality coming off our assembly line. So every vehicle we produce goes through a rigorous QA inspection, and they're looking for is a decal misaligned, is it something not torqued properly, is there anything not, and we build about 45 to 50 models, 600 to 800 vehicles a day, and so, you can see back in 2005, with a first-time quality rate, and if I went back further, it was worse than that, first-time quality rate, 50, 60, 70%, the number of touch-ups and reworks we were having to do post-production. Okay? Today we're at 98.5% first-time quality, which means we produce 600 to 800 vehicles a day. There's a handful where something wasn't perfect. The decal, and every day those are attacked, Pareto, and driven for continuous improvement. Pokio's put in place, and hourly operators held accountable for that type of quality. And you'll see the improvement of that quality in our customer satisfaction. So on a scale, this is a 7-point scale, and we consider 6.3 meaning customer loyalty or outstanding customer satisfaction. And so you can see the improvement that lean transformation has helped us drive in our customer satisfaction. And if I've been able to show you the video, we would have had our Vice President of Sales talking about how our customers can see the difference in our company in 5 or 6 years. And would have had our Director of Global Sales talking about how they just try to get customers to come to our plant to take a tour. And once we do that, we know we got the sale. Okay, so good on time. I'm wrapping up kind of where I started. I apologize the videos weren't in there. It would have been more direct. But for us, our lean transformation is about leadership. Our simple formula is 75% leadership. We do that just to reinforce in our people that culture that we're trying to build, that we have built to a certain extent, was driven by leadership. Your job satisfaction, no matter what job you're in, it's usually not about your pay, it's usually not about your benefits, it's about who your immediate supervisor is. I don't care if you're Vice President of Operations or you're assembly line, who your immediate supervisor is. If that person's a good leader, they're most likely going to be engaged and committed to the company. So it's about leadership for us, and when I say leadership, I mean frontline back. Remember that team leader is what we consider the most important position within our company. How we communicate a vision, for us, it was pretty easy. We had poor performance, and we had new leadership, and we set out this new vision. That was at the highlight. But to get the vision in the minds of the people actually transforming the business, for us it was a lot about benchmarking and visiting other companies and going back and working those plans. I talked about having an end-to-end focus. It wasn't just assembly, it wasn't just fabrication, it was material flow, it was logistics, it was all the elements of our company. Ultimately, we didn't set out to change the culture. That wasn't our goal. Our goal was to improve the business. But ultimately, the cultural change is what enabled the improvements of the business. And lastly, for us, is something that we constantly talk about is to stay humble. We have so much more room for improvement. We want every leader talking about what is it going to take to get to the next level for that improvement. So for us, when we're doing gimbal officer, when we're doing factory, we're looking for areas that are problems. In fact, if any of you come take a tour, when the department before you leave, we ask you for pluses and deltas. We say, everybody that takes our plant tour with us, they've got years and years of experience. And they see things that aren't right. And so we ask, every person that takes a tour, we've had a lot of them in the last year or two, what are things we could do better? We've got a list this long, and grade them and tackle them. And that goes into our continuous improvement program, along with employee suggestions and everything else we have to drive improvement. So staying home is part of our culture now. This is the plaque on the wall. I'll show you a more readable version in just a second, but I want to show you. It's an actual plaque on the wall. We have many quotes throughout our facility on the wall to drive inspiration, to make people think about things differently. This one, though, wasn't put up by management. This one was put up by the employees. It's a Vince Lombardi quote. I'll read it to you if you can't see it in the back. It's time for all of us to stand up and cheer for the achiever, the one who recognizes the problem and does something about it. That's a great quote. We love it. We had hourly employees who were doing a Kaizen event. Went and had this made, put it on the wall themselves. And it was about halfway through our transformation. And to us, it was a marker. It was kind of a tipping point. That we knew that they were starting to buy in. And they were starting to buy in not only because we were improving the facility and investing in better lighting and better machine guarding and 5S and new paint on the walls. They also saw us moving on with core performers I told you about. And getting rid of the troublemakers and getting them out of the facility and rewarding those who are driving a real improvement. Investing in that frontline leadership. They recognized that. They put this on the wall. And it was their way of saying, you're doing the right thing, keep doing it. To us, it was a tipping point, and really, after that, it started to take off in ways that even amazed us. There was a last video. Oops. But obviously that isn't going to work out. So let me just end by saying I'm glad to be here today. Hopefully you got a little something out about Easy Goes Lean transformation. We still feel we're in the process of doing that. There's a lot more room to build it. But for us, it's all about leadership. Thank you. We've got several minutes left if there are any questions I can have.
How would you get management to buy into the Draper law?
Well, initially, I started out with the company in 06 in charge of supply chain. So, previously, my boss, who has this position on there today, we started in operations. Okay, so it was the vice president of operations and logistics, quality, purchasing, manufacturing, engineering. We didn't have a choice. It was to be there or else, right? We started driving rigorous in terms of operations. But then he started grabbing the president. The president started going and the beginning forced him to get out there, but he was willing to do it. And so as we begin to drive the change and one value stream, one area at a time, then it was easy. There was excitement about, hey, let's go see what's changed today. Let's go see what's changed today. And now when you take a tour, literally something's different every week in the facility. And I'm in charge of the facility. Sometimes I'm walking through and say, why is that there? Well, we changed this. They're trying stuff. They're changing this, and it's kind of infectious, that culture. But in the beginning, we had to force it. But after a while, as change took place, then yes, sir.
As you weed out, you're saying you mentioned 10% of the workforce every year. Like you weed out the naysayers, poor performers. Did you readjust how many folks you were expecting, or the percentage every year? Have you seen it adjust? Did you force that adjustment?
We did. We didn't. It wasn't. We didn't really take the GE model and said every year had to be 10%. But every year we did performance appraisals. We forced the manufacturing management to do them on a bell curve. We wouldn't allow everybody, if you're on a 5-point scale and 5's good, we wouldn't allow everybody to be a 4 to 5. We forced the bell curve. Okay? We didn't have a percent we were trying to eliminate, we were trying to drive performance improvement. And so we're trying to force the difficult conversations that people sometimes are unwilling to have. Everybody thinks that they're a 4 or 5, but everybody's a 3. So we forced that, and every year once the appraisals came in, we draw a line somewhere and say, okay, this is the bottom 10%, and they weren't necessarily limited. They were put on performance improvement plans. A written plan that says, here's what you're not doing, that's as good as your peers, do this, and everything will be fine. You'll be off it in a scheduled period of time. If you don't do it, you'll be terminated. Of course, most people self-terminate. They don't do because they can't or don't want to do. They usually don't want to do what it takes to be a good employee. So then we say they're self-terminated. We just had to have clearance control.
But as you saw those folks eliminate, you got rid of the fat, and now you're left with the muscle, and hopefully you're not cutting the bone. Do you readjust as you went down the journey?
Yes. So now we're down to, we have a very lean workforce, and last year we didn't hire any just due to the economy. We didn't lay off any hourly employees last year as well because of all this. So they were protected. But we didn't lay off, we didn't fire anybody for poor performance this past year. We're down to a very good workforce. It's very engaged, very committed to the company, and really, that's the source of our success, is that engaged workforce, that culture. Yes, sir.
Yes. Did you guys touch in on the office of transactional type processes?
Yes, yeah. In attack every area. So, less rigorous, I suppose, is the operations. But when we won the Shingo Prize last year, it was an enterprise level for Shingo, which is kind of a new thing for them. So they assessed our company from our remote sales branches through engineering, all the way. Obviously, spent days and days on the shop floor. And operations is still a piece of it, but they assess the entire company, from financial results to how our sales branches operate, to transactions, to the office environment.
Okay, and did you guys apply that same level of discipline that you applied in the shop area to the office area?
I'd like to say yes, but the truth is probably not. Probably not. Most of the effort and rigor was in operations. But the functional, you're the head of human resources, they had to have metrics boards, and they had to have some level of a 5S program in the office, and they had to have an attack on waste around transactions, okay? But, it was the same energy in the human resource department as it was on the shop floor. No, not really. Yes, sir.
When you went on your benchmarking trips, how many people typically would you take with you, and what were the demographics of the management, frontline leaders, assemblers?
We tried to not take a large group at all. We tried to be very cost conscious. So most of our trips, we tried to be in the southeast U.S., where we could jump in a company truck or a company car and drive over there back in a day and not spend a lot of money. We would typically take a small team, but we tried to take all levels. Now, we didn't take an hourly person off the floor. We typically take a team leader who was still an hourly person but may own a team if what we were going to benchmark was applicable to that area. We tended to do targeted benchmarks. Although we did some general, hey, this is a top 10 plant, let's go see them. If we heard somebody who was great at warehousing or logistics or material flow or assembly or fabrication, we wanted to target that area. We would take the folks from that area, and we tried to take a small cross-functional. We still do it today. It's kind of ingrained in our culture. Folks get very excited about going and learning from other companies. And then they come back and do, hey, we're better than them at this. Oh, but this is really good, this is really good. How do we apply it? It doesn't make sense for us.
Have you embedded that kind of into your budget for the year? Or how do you justify the cost for that?
Well, it's just, I have a travel budget, so I have to make it all work, which is a lot smaller this year than it was a couple years ago. So we're very targeted. We only do a few a year, and we try to do them, like I said, the day trips to the southeast, we're not jumping on planes and flying across the country if we can avoid it. So how much does it cost to jump in a car, drive a state or two over, visit a plant, and come back the same day? It costs us lunch and, some mileage on a car. So it doesn't cost a lot to do it. And there are more in your backyard than you think there are. So, yes, sir, right here.
You focus on team leader training, system front, back, and just so what did you focus on training?
We have an extensive team leader training program. We call it Team Leader Boot Camp. The first one we ever did years ago, we brought in an Army drill sergeant and some Army guys. We have a fort near our base. So that's how it came about. And we talked about their small unit leadership training, and the name stuck, Team Leader Boot Camp. So it kind of started as a periodic event. We run a 4-10 shift, so we bring all the team leaders on a Friday and do an all-day Friday. And it started out, we do it a couple times a year, and now we kind of have an ongoing program for the team leader development that occurs more regularly. And it's every year we kind of build on it with more in-depth business acumen, lean, and leadership is really what we're trying to drive into. And this past 2 years ago, we due to the economy, we're somewhat seasonal business. January and July are our lowest months of the year. Spring and fall are the peaks. So January is normally a slow month for us, but January 2009 was particularly slow, and we were going to have several weeks the factory was going to be down. And so instead of forcing our hourly workforce to be on unemployment for that period of time, we were trying to come up with work for them to do. We decided to put our entire hourly workforce through lean training. So this is every person in the factory. We put them through 3 days of full-time lean training. We didn't know what was going to come out of it. We put together this long curriculum. We developed it ourselves. We didn't want to spend any money. So we took Six Sigma Black Belt and a lean expert and a couple manufacturing folks and said, go develop a curriculum. So they spent a couple months developing it, and it turned out pretty well. They just borrowed from our corporate Six Sigma and all the stuff that's out there. We put together this curriculum. So we put our hourly workforce in 3 days of this lean training. It was so successful it surprised us. So when it was over with, we have operators come up to us, that was great. We want more of it. Can we have more of that training? And to get a return out of it, to justify to my boss, the president, why we're going to pay people for 3 days of training when they're building no product, I said, boss, we're going to ask every one of them to do 2 continuous improvement projects that have quality or cost results to the bottom line of the company. And so we put a target out that everybody would do 2. They had to either lead one or participate as part of one. And you had to do it during your work hours or on breaks. And we set a goal for 250 of those projects to be completed in 2009. They did 400, with a backlog of more being open. And when you walk out on the floor, it just drove engagement to another level. Because you'd go out to them and you'd say, Mike, how's it going? What's going on? Hey, boss, let me show you. Look what I did over here. And it may be a small improvement, like a little bit of 5S for an area, or he may have fixed access to a machine so he can repair it more quickly, or he might have improved the quality. It's usually typically a small project, but when you have hundreds of small projects, it adds up, and when you get that type of engagement, was the power that took off. And so it was so successful, we got such a return on our investment that we're doing it now annually. So we did it again this year with additional lean training for our workforce.
If you take the pay for performance out of this equation, do you still feel you've been successful and had the employee involvement that you did?
We would have been successful, but it added a degree. I don't know that I quantify how much it added. We continue to add to that pay performance. Like I said, it's now $900 a quarter. It's a little more complex than the simple formula. And we started out plant-wide, all right? We got back from Nucor, we had this great idea, but we didn't do it by team level. We did it by plant-wide. So as a plant, we either made it or didn't make it. How was our delivery, our safety, our quality, and our attendance? And now we've evolved down to the value stream. So if I'm in assembly on this line, we're a team. If I'm in fabrication in this area, we're a team. If I'm in the warehouse, we're a team. I'm in logistics, we're a team, and I'm measured by my team, which is more effective, especially when you're driving. I'm my brother's keeper, on the attendance goal. Attendance goal is pretty rough. We can have less than 1% absenteeism. So if they get 1.1%, they don't get that part of the goal. And then the labor hours per vehicle, I showed you the labor hours per vehicle, which is our key efficiency goal, and every year's driven improvement. Every year, to get that payout in their variable compensation, that goes higher. So I can't quantify how much of an impact it has, but it certainly has had an impact. It certainly has. Now, at the end of the day, right now, it's maybe 10% of the take-home. But, I pay attention to 10% bonus and what metrics I'm being driven on. Yes, sir.
Expound on frontline leadership, getting their engagement, getting their buy-in, this process.
Yeah, it wouldn't be any different than what I talked about, really. In terms of we had a lot of the wrong first-line leaders. Okay, so when I talk about rigorous performance appraisals, yes, we did it in an hourly workforce, but our standards for leadership is high. So the team leaders we have today are a lot different than we had 5 or 6 years ago. Most of those folks are gone because they didn't want to or could not achieve what we expected. So part of it is limiting the poor performers, but it's then rewarding the folks with the good ideas and the involvement in those who are the good leaders. And so, those folks we promote heavily out of that group. We try to promote 80 to 90% of all our positions internally because we want that motivation that you can, if you do what we're asking you to do, if you drive that improvement, you'll be rewarded with additional responsibility. So, it was twofold, as I mentioned, limiting the poor performers and then just building that engagement, doing the training, and teaching our team and getting out of their way. Who was it? John this morning about new course laws? That was great. I love it because we believe similar thing. And like I said, they're empowered to drive those projects on the floor, so we try to do that. Yes, sir.
Quick question. During this transformation, what has your company done on the product design side to make the product more producible and more reliable? Because that was one of the criticisms of your golf cart 10 years ago. It wasn't real reliable after about 5 to 8 years.
The product development, product changes, design changes tend to take longer. They do. So if you spend all your energy in your design, going back and redesigning 5 and 10-year-old product, and you put that energy into the next product and getting it right. And so the last couple of products we've launched, for example, our new car is 60% less parts, and it goes together with less labor hours with our older vehicles. So the new vehicles are coming out with the design for manufacturing and design for reliability intent. But we don't have unlimited resources to go back and redesign everything. So the engineering group has come a long way, but as an internal credit of them, we're pushing to go farther and faster. We really do. And in today's world, the design life of any product is half a nanosecond. If you're not producing a new product regularly, you can't compete in today's world. That's a challenge for me. Yes, sir.
You said that your workforce came up with hundreds of ideas after training, and now you got a continuous improvement team or someone that facilitates those ideas as they're implemented, or is it left up to the floor?
There's a small continuous improvement team, which really the plant manager has a master black belt lean manager and a couple of shop floor employees, and those 3 people make up the continuous improvement team. They don't go do the projects. All they do is help facilitate the projects. That backlog, if you brought in an idea and you're working on machining stuff, that's your idea to go work. So we do put it back on you, but sometimes you need some help. I want to build some shelving here. I want to do display board, or I need some paint, or I need that team will help facilitate it. So that team's there to help facilitate it. Plus, they track all the projects, make sure they're getting done, they're not aging, all that type of stuff. We also help evaluate them. We try to push the evaluation of all projects down to the lowest level. Last thing we want is you submit an idea and you wait 5 months for manager to say yes or no. We give that team leader right there the ability to say yes or no on 90% of projects. If it costs capital or a lot of money, the only reason they have to be elevated up. So that team facilitates it. And they tend to lead larger ones. If we have Python and extra stuff, they'll help lead that. But most of them is.
You talked about, in the beginning, kind of ramming the new culture down the throats, if I'm paraphrasing. What were the top couple of cultural barriers that you had to overcome, aside from trimming the fat? What were the top cultural issues, and what was the main thing you did to successfully overcome those barriers?
Well, we had a lot of management, middle and management down to the team leader roles. We didn't think it was necessary or we want to do it. And so it took a lot of difficult conversations. It took either them changing or them leading the company in some cases. So the biggest barrier was the buy-in. So how do you win over the people, but at the same time identifying which ones are never going to be won over and trying to get rid of them? Okay? That's no simple task. And our goal wasn't to eliminate anybody. Our goal was to change the company. But at some point, if Jeff's just a troublemaker and he's undermining everything we're trying to do, at some point you could have had a conversation with Jeff and say, you get on board or you're gone. And so that takes a while to get rid of. 80% of the folks want to change. And once you empower them, they hang plaques on the wall that says, this is great, this is the right way to go. It's the trouble with the folks you spend 80% of your time with, 20% of the people. That's hard. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything that we could do to improve your margin?
In the beginning, we hired consultants. It cost us a lot of money. McKinsey was one of them, and others. They're smart folks. But when you're spending gobs of money for these consultants to come in and tell you how to change, I'm not sure we can do consultants. I think it'd be better to hire a couple people internally and do it yourself. No offense to consultants or some of the room, but there was a cultural resistance to these outsiders coming in and driving that change that made more problems than we needed. But that was probably a big one. I think we would have moved even faster on changing out some of the management. Maybe we stuck with some people too long and just weren't capable of getting there or did not want to get there. And it's not like we didn't have this grand plan of how it was going to be transformed. We just started doing it. And it evolved over time. It started top down. He said we rammed it down their throats. I don't know about that, but it was top down, it was management driven. Today it's bottoms up. We have employees generating the ideas. Just Mayor.
When you say top down, is coming with the top from Textron mothership or top down?
Well, a little bit of both. I mean, basically, when you lose money in a given year and your quality's getting worse, your market share is going down, your customer satisfaction's not good, it's pretty easy for Mother Textron to say, improve or else. And in fact, when Textron came in, put a new president in charge of the business, quickly he changed out most of the senior leadership team, and so we had a whole new leadership team. We didn't need any more guidance from Textron at that point. That president had a prime directive. He knew he needed to fix that business or he wouldn't last that long.
So when we discussed at that point?
Yes, Textron rolled out a Six Sigma initiative corporate-wide around the year 2000. It was started heavy debate and variation, but quickly it morphed into really three things: lean, design for Six Sigma, and debate. And so the corporate folks had lean teams, what we call lean senseis, to help the businesses. We had Six Sigma Foundation. Corporate was putting all that in place, And then they're the ones who kind of set the goal. We want you to be Shingo Gold in 2008 was the original, rallying cry. But then that was it. Businesses, you got to go execute. Well, here's these resources, here's the training, here's the goal, here's our expectation. And from that point on, it really wasn't corporate anymore, it was us. And if you were management, you got the message, you would change, you didn't have wild business.